David sat on the edge of the bed, staring blankly at the wall. He couldn't move. The words had just hit him like a freight train. I know who hurt your son. Just 7 words, but they carried a weight that 2 years of fear, confusion, and helplessness couldn't compare to. His chest tightened. His knees shook. His mind spun in circles. Who? How? Why? 2 years ago, his life had changed in an instant. His son, Ethan, was a bright, energetic 8-year-old who loved to climb, race his friends, and play soccer in the park. He had a laugh that made strangers stop and smile, a smile that could light up even the darkest of rooms. David had always tried to be a good father. Every weekend was theirs. Saturday mornings were reserved for pancakes and park adventures. Even after long work weeks, David made time for his boy. But one sunny afternoon, everything fell apart. David remembered the shriek as if it were etched into his soul. He had turned around to see Ethan sprawled on the ground, hands over his face, crying uncontrollably. At first, David thought it was just a normal accident. Children fell all the time. But something in Ethan's cry didn't feel normal. It was laced with confusion and fear. Hours later, after frantic hospital visits and countless medical tests, the news came like a crushing blow. David, your son's spinal cord is severely injured. He may never walk again. David couldn't breathe. Every self-reproach, every imagined what if hit him at once. What if he had been paying more attention? What if he had grabbed Ethan sooner? What if he had noticed the other boy near the swing? Every moment of that day replayed in his mind like a cruel film. And yet, every doctor, every well-meaning stranger, every whispered it was an accident couldn't silence a nagging doubt in David's heart. Because Ethan had whispered something different. "Daddy, he pushed me," Ethan said once, his small voice trembling. David wanted to believe it was a mistake, a child's confusion. But the word stayed. A shadow of doubt lingered, a shadow that refused to leave. 2 years passed. Ethan learned to navigate life in a wheelchair. He learned to play video games, mastered schoolwork, and even helped his father around the house in ways that seemed impossible for a child so young. Despite the injury, he never lost his optimism. "Daddy," he said one evening, hugging David tightly, "I can still see the stars. I just have to imagine them a little differently." David clung to those words like a lifeline. But no matter how proud he was of Ethan's courage, the anger, the unanswered questions, and the need for justice gnawed at him every single day. Then, one crisp autumn evening, there was a knock at the door. He opened it to see a young woman, pale, trembling, unable to meet his gaze. I know who hurt your son," she whispered, her voice barely audible. David's world tilted. His heart pounded. What did you say?" he asked, his voice trembling with a mix of dread and hope. She took a shaky breath. "I was there. I saw everything." The truth spilled out in stutters and pauses. Ethan's injury hadn't been a random accident. It had been the result of another child's bullying at the park, one of the kids in the group David hadn't paid much attention to. The girl who had been babysitting that day had frozen, unsure what to do. She hadn't confessed. She hadn't told anyone for 2 years. But now, she had come forward. David's mind reeled. Rage, shock, and the urge to scream boiled inside him. How could someone hide this? How could they stand by while his son suffered? But then the woman spoke again, and something unexpected happened. I saw him at the community center," she said. "Ethan, he didn't even know me, but he smiled. He offered help. He spoke kindness to someone who had caused him harm, without realizing it. I couldn't ignore it any longer." David felt his knees weaken. His son, despite all the pain, had shown forgiveness, a strength David could barely comprehend. The young woman handed him an envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter of apology, raw and honest, with no excuses, only the truth and a promise to dedicate her life to helping children like Ethan. There was also a check representing years of savings she had worked for, though David barely noticed it. What mattered was the acknowledgement, the taking of responsibility, the desire to make things right. David sat in silence, holding the letter, emotion surging through him like a storm. He didn't know what to say. Could he forgive her? Should he? Did he even want to? That night, Ethan rolled over to him, resting his small head on David's lap. "Daddy, "Why are you so quiet?" he asked. David looked at him, at his brave, beautiful son who had faced more in 8 years than most do in a lifetime, and whispered, "Ethan, if someone hurt you and they wanted to be better, would you forgive them?" Ethan smiled, a gentle, radiant smile. "I already did, Daddy." Tears streamed down David's face. He realized something profound. Anger had been a weight he didn't need to carry. Justice, vengeance, punishment, they wouldn't heal his son. But kindness could. The next day, David met the young woman again. She stood in the cold, trembling. David didn't yell. He didn't condemn. He simply said, "You can start making this right. Begin by helping those who need it." And she did. She volunteered with children with disabilities, raised funds for therapy programs, helped build accessible playgrounds, and visited Ethan regularly, not as someone to fear, but as someone learning to be better. David watched his son's influence ripple outward. Ethan hadn't regained the ability to walk, but he had restored something far more profound, the humanity in someone who had once caused pain. Months later, David found himself reflecting on the journey. The anger, the self-blame, the nights filled with tears, they hadn't disappeared, but they had transformed into gratitude, into understanding, into a deep, unshakable belief that kindness and forgiveness are not weaknesses. They are the strongest forms of courage. And in the end, that is what healed David's heart. Not revenge, not justice, but the choice to forgive, to allow the light of humanity to shine even in the darkest moments. Because sometimes the greatest miracles aren't in restoring what was lost. They're in showing the world how to see differently, how to choose hope over hate, and how even broken hearts can teach us the power of kindness. David held Ethan close that night, whispering, "You've shown me more courage than anyone else ever could. Thank you for teaching me the power of forgiveness." Ethan smiled, eyes twinkling with warmth. "Daddy, kindness is stronger than pain, and we just proved it." Thank you for watching Classic Stories. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that remind us how powerful compassion truly is.